Hello everybody. So, anybody who's subscribed will obviously be aware that I haven't been putting anything out on the channel for a little while. There's been a couple of reasons for that, but the chief reason for it was because I was having some technical difficulties. And you can see that the last so-called normal upload that I did was regarding this observation at Aberdour, and that itself was a last minute desperate attempt to try and put the information out there by doing a live stream, which was not the ideal way to present the information, because I would rather have edited it together into something that would have taken less time. So you've got an hour long live stream, and then because of some technical issues, a second part. So it wasn't really ideal. It was just a way to get the information out, but when you actually watch this stream back, it's still got the problem where it's kind of jumping frames and it just looks awful. So hopefully, I think I've sorted out these technical issues and should be able to record and put some stuff out again. So for this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to present two observations, one being a condensed version of this Aberdour, just the basic facts, and then another one which I haven't shared before, and they both have a similarity. I'll talk about that in a minute. Once this video is uploaded and that quick information is there, I'm going to unlist these videos because I was never really happy with them. And briefly, before we move on to those observations, first I want to say thanks to anybody who came and subscribed to the channel in the last couple of months. I'm sorry that you've been encouraged to come over here and I haven't been putting out any content. Hopefully I can remedy that soon. Also, I did try this little music project, which is something different for the channel. I want to thank everybody who joined in and took part in that, but ultimately it never really took off. There's not a lot of contribution. It's just been sitting there now for a couple of months with nobody else adding to it. So again, with it being a bit out of place with the channel, I'm going to unlist this video as well. So I'm just basically going to tidy up a little bit by removing these into unlisted, and then try and crack on and get some more stuff added to the channel over the next few weeks. Alright, so let's crack on, just quickly going back over this Aberdour observation. I'm going to keep this fairly short. I'm not going to go into great detail about it, just the basics. So a while back, Miles Davis made an observation from this location. This is just a quick view of the area in Google Maps, as you can see. So this is the place where Miles went to and made a view across the Firth of Forth, looking at Phaedra Island and so on. And this was then followed up by a flat earther called Flatsa. And when Flatsa made his video, he claimed to basically be at the same height as Miles Davis, but he didn't go to quite the right spot. And following on from that, I made these couple of pictures just pointing out the difference between the low point that Miles went to in his video and the difference between where Miles went to and where Flatsa went to on the same piece of land to take the same observation. This was just another view from both their videos showing the slight difference. Now, the main point about Miles's video was that he went here and there's a hill up above where the lighthouse is located down in the rocks, and he did one continuous shot starting up at the top of the hill, went down the steps that you can see in the left here in my photograph, worked his way down the hill, went over to the lighthouse at the lower point, and then down onto that little plateau that you saw a second ago. So he did a continuous video looking over at the islands with different elevations. Flatsa went to the trouble of going there, didn't bother to do the elevation shots, only did the low elevation and didn't even go to the right spot. Flatsa has more than one video going back to this same spot and still didn't recreate what Miles did. So then I ended up making the trip through there myself, and I went and did more or less the same thing as what Miles did. So this picture here is the P1000 set up the top of the hill with me getting ready to work my way down. But what I did that day was I went through Took the P900 out and I walked around, and I took some photographs and video using the P900, taking a walk up the hill. And then once I did that, classed that as supposedly a kind of scouting mission, if you like, I then dragged out the P1000 and worked my way up the hill. I took some photographs, and then I did the same thing as Miles. I made one continuous video as I worked my way down the hill. I made more stops than Miles did, and my final stop was at a lower point on the rocks than what either Flatser or Miles had went to. Now, I'm not going to share the continuous video in this video because I don't want this video to be long. What I'm going to do is I'm going to upload the continuous video unlisted, but link it under the description for this video, so if anybody wants to watch the full video they can do that. The only difference I'm going to make to the original video is I'm going to take the original audio out of it, so you don't have all the the wind noise and some of the nonsense I'm talking about. I'll speed it up a little bit, and I'll just put some quick little notes pointing out where I'm, top of the hill, middle of the hill, stuff like that. There's no measurements for the exact heights, but if you check out Miles's original video, he did all the work with Ordnance Survey and pointed out the the contour lines and what the heights were of this hill. So at this point here, you're around about 22 meters looking across, and then working your way down to around 3 meters near the base of the lighthouse. And then, as I say, I went a little bit lower onto the rocks. So that's the overall gist of what you're seeing the results of here. So this is the top view, just to give you an idea of the layout. We're going, the shots are looking over here towards stuff that you can't really see on the horizon very well at the moment in shot. So I'll just go to the pictures and get this out of the way. So these were the shots that I shared before, showing how it looked through the P900 from a couple of different positions. You can see I've marked it there where, halfway up the hill, near to the bottom of the hill, but not quite at the bottom. And then an area I referred to as the boathouse area, which again you can see in that longer video, but I'm just going to, not going to waste too much time in this. The main thing is that you can see the difference the elevation makes as you get lower. Then when I went up the hill with the P1000, I took photographs on the way up. I took multiple photographs, but the thing about these 4 that I've selected to put together here is they were all taken at the same focal length. So starting at the rocks and working my way up, in this case this was the order that they were actually taken in, and then once I've got up the top of the hill, I've then put the camera onto video and walked down and filmed the whole thing back to these same positions and a couple of others. And so that's how we've got this, which is a series of stills taken from the video, from the 6 positions that I stopped at in total. The main difference between what I've done and what Miles did was I went to this, what I'm referring to as the boathouse area, and going to the rocks. The rest of it is just a couple of extra stops on the hill, just to show the more gradual change as you work your way down and the way it affects the view. So as I say, I will link the video and not play it here to save some time if anybody wants to still watch the actual, the full walk down the hill. And just for reference, this photograph is where what I refer to as the rocks, that's the final location, the lowest possible shot that I got, which as you can see is still a few feet above the sea. It's not like it's right down next to the water level. And as I say, this is the result. Now the other observation that I want to share was actually done around about this time last year at Loch Lomond, and the reason I'm putting these 2 together in the one video is because they both have this same thing in common, which is that it was the same type of observation where I did a continuous shot and worked my way through a couple of different elevations, but the overall elevations involved are much smaller. It's maximum 30 feet, and the distance is much shorter, so we'll have a look at that as well. Alright, so for this other observation, which is actually older, as I say, it was June last year, this is a place called the Cruin on the banks of Loch Lomond. So this is just, the view from Google Maps on my phone at the time where I was positioned. And then just a wider shot showing where we're going to be looking at. So this is me located down here, and we're going to be looking across this stretch of water towards Balmaha. And just for reference, this is Inchmurrin Island, which we'll also see in the photographs and so on. Now, on the day that I was taking the photographs, I did the measure distance option with Google Maps on the phone, and it's 5.2 miles. Later on, when I get back to the house, I double checked this on Google Earth and it was all the same and so on. But so it's just over a 5 mile observation. And unlike the other observation, which was done over the sea, and I forgot to mention the distance a minute ago, sorry, that was a 23 mile observation. So this one is only 5 miles and it's over a loch, so we don't have the problems with so-called swells, waves and all that nonsense. So this is the actual view of the area that I'm actually located at to do this observation. So we've got Loch Lomond here, this is Ben Lomond in the background, that's Inchmurrin Island that I pointed out a minute ago. And this is the place where I'm going to be doing the observation. So it starts off in this corner at the railing, looking across, and then I go down beside the jetty here. And then as you'll see in this next photograph, let me just zoom in. There's a ramp leading down to it. And the photograph here is probably a bit deceptive. It maybe doesn't look as steep as it actually is. But anyway, the observation is going to be starting here, looking across. This is roughly somewhere in the region of 12 to 15 feet. Then moving down here next to the jetty on the ramp and doing an observation that's a few feet off the water. In the continuous video that I do, I actually take the camera off the tripod to try and get it lower first, then move up the hill, but then I end up working my way back down the hill and doing it again on the tripod with the camera roughly a couple of feet above the surface of the water, but I'll show you that in a minute. So it's viewing here, moving down here, moving up to the top for the elevated shot, and then back down to here to finish off. Right, so as I say, I don't want to waste too much time in this video. Again, I'm not going to share the full length continuous video in this video. I will link it, and again I'll remove the audio so it isn't noisy and stuff. But I just want to get straight to the point of the results. So this is the two images I've selected from the upper view and the lower view. And I've just cropped it a bit just so you can see straight away what the difference is with the elevated shots. So this is the normal view. You can see right across to the other side. You can see all the boats on the water at the marina. You can see this building and so on. And then this is what it looks like from a lower view. The final, this is the kind of final position that I had the camera in. You can only see the peak of the roof here, and you can only see the masts of these boats basically. That's cutting straight to the chase and showing what the result was. But let me show you a couple of bits. Right, so just to make it a bit easier visually, this is the input next to each other with an indication of what the differences are in the elevation. And obviously the only problem here is this one's more of a wider angle that you're looking at, so they don't directly compare in terms of the kind of scale of everything. But I like this one just because you can see more of what's missing by seeing this row of masts. But I've done another version where I've resized that bottom picture to better match the upper one. So this is increased in scale just to match up closer to the way this one is zoomed in to give you a better idea of how they compare. Now if I just zoom that a bit just to make it a bit bigger and easier to see. Again, you can only see the peak of the roof on this and the chimney on this building. Here, this boat is completely missing here. Over here, we can just see this little piece. I'm sorry, I don't know the terms for bits on boats, but I'm sure somebody will. But this is the only part of this you can see down here. And you can just see that there. And all these boats are basically missing. And then as you move over here again, with this boat, it's gone except for just the fixtures on the top there that you can just make out here. Same with the one beside it. The boat itself, you can't really see it. You can just see this top area of whatever's fixed to its roof. So just a little bit there. So this was obviously done on a day. Excuse me. So obviously this was done on a day that it was clear and there was no refraction. And we know that this is one of the excuses that flat earthers give for these types of observations. It's claiming that there's reflection in inferior mirage. So I've been there more than once, and on one of those occasions I did get the problem with inferior mirage and reflection, and this is how that actually looks. Although we still have the obstruction because of the change in elevation, if you look carefully, you can see that there's inferior mirage in each of these pictures, but in this one, which is taken at the higher elevation, you can see all of the boats being mirrored. But when we move to a lower elevation, yes, there's still inferior mirage, but we're still missing the boats themselves. So the same effect applies because it's a geometric thing. You're changing your angle of view to it, and frankly there's a curve of water in the way. But what is reflected, so to speak, what is doubled up or mirrored in that layer of air above the water, is still relative to what can physically be seen. And if we look at the image with this little boathouse or whatever it is on the right, that makes it so much clearer that we can only see a small part of the peak of the roof being repeated in the inferior mirage compared to much more of the building being repeated here. So no, inferior mirage is definitely not an excuse for what we're seeing in the other image. Let me just remind you of that. This is how it looks without any problems with the atmosphere. Let me just zoom in. Literally all you can see is masts. A little bit of the top of a boat and nothing else. And the roof of the building. No atmospheric effects to worry about. This was the last position of the camera when we were taking that shot that shows everything hidden. And you can see it's a couple of feet. If you look at this one, it gives you a bit of an indication, you know, that it's above the jetty here, which is obviously, you know, above the water and so on. So it's a couple of feet above the height of the water. And as I've said, this is Loch Lomond. It's only 5 miles. It's not a ridiculous distance. And still, because of the curvature of the earth, we get the same effect. We have the problem that there's something in the way, as Miles would say, and your angle of view to an object is being cut off by the water itself and nothing else. And it's not because waves are blocking it or because there's some kind of ridiculous tsunami or any other excuse that flat earthers can come up with. So just to round off, as I say, these observations are much the same. They were both done using the video option as one continuous shot, and I'll be sharing those videos in the description so anybody can watch them with the audio removed just for convenience. But you can see what's going on, and I'm just going to warn you, if you do decide to watch the video for this observation on Loch Lomond, there's a lot of messing around at one point with me. I was having some trouble with the tripod, so you know, but that's the whole idea. It's raw. I'm not going to cut any of that nonsense out, so it's up to you to skip past and look at the bits that concern you. So we've got, as I say, we've got these two observations, same principle, both done as continuous shots, and in both cases, one a 22-mile observation over the sea, one a 5-mile observation over a loch. In both cases, the same basic result can be seen. Change your elevation more and more begins to be obstructed by the surface of the water, and it isn't down to atmospheric effects. Right guys, thanks for watching. Remember and check the description for those videos if you want to see the full length continuous shots of where these observations were taken. And I will see you in the next one, which with any luck will be a couple of days and not a couple of months away. Cheers.